There you go. Recording. You're internet famous now. Getting a lot of people this session. It's good. Okay. I think we can get started. Definitely seems like a good amount of people are here already. So hopefully that's most people, but thank you for attending this session and welcome to GIS LAS conference. We have two speakers today. One is Gustavo and the other one is Ryan. So there'll be a total of 3 different sessions. Gustavo will be running 2, Ryan will be running the 3rd. Each will run 25 minutes each with 5 minutes of asking questions. Unless Gustavo, you want to somehow shift things as necessary since you have 2 time slots. I'll let you handle that part how you want. I also want to give as much time as possible, so I'm just going to hand it off to you right away, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ethan. Yeah, my name is Gustavo Castro. I probably met some of you since I lived and work here in Minnesota. We have a regional office here in Eagan, and I've been here for the last 3 years. Before that, I was working for Esri, but in the Charlotte office for about two years there. So yeah, I'm here in Minnesota. I used to work in a number of states in the Midwest, but now focusing just in Minnesota and the kind of large organizations in Minnesota too. And today I'm here to talk about ArcGIS Hub is the first topic. And then after ArcGIS Hub, we're going to talk about the new ArcGIS Field Maps application. And then Ryan is going to come for the last session and talking about dashboards. Like Ethan said, just some things that begin here. We'll probably save the questions for the end of the presentation, since if you go to the user conference, you probably have at least 2 or 3 sessions on each one of these topics. Each session is an hour long. So the 25 minutes that we have here today to go over, it's going to be more a quick overview of things. So if you already have seen introductory presentation on Hub or Field Maps, I definitely try to add some things here for those folks too. So things that are new or newer that you might not be aware of, but the majority of the time will be focused more on kind of the introductory level content. Okay, so here's the agenda for today. We're going to start with just kind of talking about Hub for a little bit for those that are new to ArcGIS Hub. Because this is a GIS conference, I think most of you have at least heard about it, but some people might not have really had too much exposure to what Hub is and what it can do. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Hub. I wanted to add some custom highlights here because that's a question that we get often, is just examples of how other organizations using this. What exactly can I do that would be applicable to my organization, or what I see on an Esri demo. So we're not going to have time to really dive deep into those examples here, but I just want to provide them. You can maybe get the URL or at least get the name for the sites and do some research later if some of those kind of stands out and you want to learn more about them. And then I'm going to talk about what's new with ArcGIS Hub and do a quick demonstration just with the time that we have left here at the end. But again, I'm in Minnesota, so if you have any questions after the presentation, feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to talk about Hub. So ArcGIS Hub is what we call the engagement platform. And what that means is that it has a lot of tools that allows organizations to have a two-way communication platform with the community, with other organizations in the area, partners, other stakeholders. And those tools, they might be something like a way to schedule, manage events. It might be surveys to collect feedback on certain topics. It might be just maybe you're more interested in providing data or providing documents. So we talk about Hub here, and usually people, the first thing they think is maps and spatial data, but it's also a good location to share any type of media files or even PDFs, text files that you have that you want to share with other people in the community. And then there are a lot of other things that maybe everything is very visual with Hub, so maybe it's easier to kind of see some of those things as we go through the examples in the demo. But that's kind of the time that I have here today. What I want to cover on this slide is just Hub being this central destination where you can engage with your community. And it started just as an open data site for those of you that are newer to ArcGIS Hub. Like, I believe most probably already know that, but it has evolved to much more than just providing data. And here are just a few examples of things how you can use Hub and how it can be useful to your organization if you need something that's related to communications. And usually GIS staff, they play a role here, but they have to work with the graphics team, the communications team, because GIS and map and location data is just one component of this system, right? You need a lot of language and images and files and stuff to make the site really appealing and deliver the message you want to deliver to your users. So, but communication is one. Share data, like I mentioned before, that's how it started, and you can still do that certainly to share data and other types of content with your citizens. Capture information feedback, and that can be something that maybe staff is going here to enter some information, but it can also be information that the community users, the citizens in the community, as users of the system, they have access to a number of applications they can use to help you collect data, or just provide some feedback. Maybe you have a survey or something, you want to collect some comments about an upcoming project or anything related to that. And then the last piece here is kind of more broader topic, but that collaboration piece where you can work with users from the community, other organizations. Those can be in the private sector or not. So there's an example here later that from Washington, DC, where they work with a lot of consultants and engineers that help them with some projects. And Hub was kind of key component for the deliverables of that project. If you have seen any other ArcGIS Hub presentation, you've probably seen this slide, and it's just this idea that Esri created Hub, not because it's something that we thought was cool and nice people had, but because cities and counties and other organizations, they have these high-level goals, and they are very big goals, with a lot of steps until you can consider those projects successful. So this idea of being more sustainable, more transparent, more livable, healthier, those are things that can mean different things to different people, but a tool where the organizations could collaborate with other users, since these are not small topics and involve a lot of different groups. It's kind of the idea behind ArcGIS Hub and why Esri created it. And within each one of those topics that I mentioned the last slide here, there are some challenges. So governance of data and other things related to the projects is one of them. Resources, those could be people, could be financial resources, other resources needed to ensure that the project is successful. That's another challenge that organizations usually face. Community building, that's something that can be very rewarding if done well, but it's not something easy to do, right? I think a lot of organizations, even the private sector these days, focus a lot on community building, but that's not something that can be easily done. So that's listed as challenge 3 here. And challenge 4 is the accessible participation. It's another big topic too, with making sure that everyone in the community has access to the information and the topics related to the project. That's a big one too. And that's something that we get a lot of questions about when it comes to Hub. So the reason why I have these challenges here is because the examples that I selected, they are related to these topics. So I'm going to go through each one of them quickly here. Like I said, we don't have time to really dive in, but you can research more if you're interested. So that building community topic, how other organizations have worked closely together with policymakers and other stakeholders in the community. A good example is this Move DC website. So you can see the URL there, or if you just Google Move DC Esri, because the URL has ArcGIS there, you'll be able to find this. But it's basically the solution that Wash DC found to working with engineers and consultants, like I mentioned before, to have a central destination to collect all the deliverable from those projects. So before, a lot of companies, they offer to host those sites and the deliverables, but it's something that maybe after the project is complete, it's hard to maintain, or there's a cost associated with maintaining that on their system. So Washington, DC found a way to bring everything to their system. So now when they release a request or proposal or something, one of the requirements that the deliverables are included in this system here. And then it's just easier for them to maintain, and they can save some costs too. And they can ensure the data and everything is always the authoritative source here. So that's one example, the transparency and feedback here with the broader community, not just with those organizations that you're working closely. One good example is this Fullerton City site here, where this is the classic hub site because they provide different information products like dashboards and charts and maps that you can see as you explore the site. But they also provide the option to sign up for email notifications, to receive updates on projects. And of course, there is a lot of text and images and static maps and other documents that support this idea of letting the community know what's happening, what are the main projects that are being constructed around the city. And then the next one is this Escondido in Southern California. This is going back to that topic of making sure that specific groups in the community have access to the information. So a key thing to make that successful that we have seen in working with these communities is that you need to really leverage those local champions. So those can be nonprofits in the area, can be some community organizers, or anyone that can speak for those communities and they have the trust of the communities. They can help making sure that the message is delivered to those citizens. So this is a good example of that. And I don't know exactly, I didn't personally work on all this project, so I don't know exactly to the level that they're using Hub outside of what we can see here. But the idea that you can even give field maps or Survey 123 or access those applications to those community champions, that's very powerful. And it's something that if they're not doing, they could do. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the different levels. So there's a Hub Basic and a Hub Premium and what's included and what the differences are there, because I mentioned here giving access to those applications to community champions. That's something that's available in the premium version. And it's a question that we get often. So I'm going to, in a few minutes here, I'm going to talk about that a little bit too. And the last one at the state level, Montana, when they were revisiting this forest action plan here, they wanted it to be more community centered. And they had an advisory group that was created to help them execute and plan this. And Hub plays a central role here in kind of being the central destination for everything. And you can see on the menu at the top there, there's even one for documents. So they're not using this just for spatial data, but for all sorts of documents. And it might be recorded meetings, it might be whatever it is that you need to make available to the advisory group and maybe the counties and other organizations in the state. That's how they're using Hub. And you can learn more again if you just type the name of the site here. Okay, so I want to go through those quickly, and let me see how I'm doing on time here, because we don't have a lot of time today. But with the time that I have left, I'm gonna talk a little bit. I have a few more slides, and then I'm going to open ArcGIS Hub, ArcGIS Online here, and talk a little bit more about how you can configure the site and get started. But just before I move on with the technical slides here, one thing that we have been noticing, the more work that we do in this area, working with organizations, that these projects, the technology piece is easy, right? Creating a hub site, you can do that in minutes. And then what happens next is what's more difficult. And from collecting the right graphics and language for your site to really broader, bigger topics like having a strategy, having objectives and things like that. And the organizations that they have done this successfully, usually they follow these steps here. So again, even before you go to ArcGIS Online and say, I want to create a hub site, you should be thinking about what do we want to accomplish with this? What are those key activities that need to happen? What is needed, what would be nice to have? How we're going to measure if this is really worth the resource that we're spending. So those objectives that you can always come back to and measure the progress that you're making. And then the last one here, like I just said, the measuring piece, right? And maybe you want to start small and think about one or two of these things, or you want to really create a detailed plan before, but the more thinking you can do before you spin up that site, the best. But things will evolve too. So it has to be a balance there where you can start testing some things and see how they're working, and then you can grow and go from there. So ArcGIS, when you talk about ArcGIS Hub, we're talking about ArcGIS Online. So that's the first thing that I want to mention here. There is something ArcGIS Enterprise called ArcGIS Enterprise Sites, which is equivalent to ArcGIS Hub Basic. So you have the option to spin up sites, to provide data, and you can add images, add text, add video, and all sorts of little widgets that you have to help you configure that site. But when you think about that two-way communication channel that I mentioned at the beginning, where people can have access to the same tools that you have internally to help you complete some tasks, or you want to be able to manage events and allow people to sign up to those events, those are things that are available at this Hub Premium level. And that's something specific to ArcGIS Online at the moment. There has been some interest from users that we heard that they'd like to see some of these capabilities available in the ArcGIS Enterprise sites, but at the moment, it's something that the team is considering. It's only available at the Hub Premium level in ArcGIS Online. But this is just a good graphic here. If you are newer to this, or if you have some questions about the levels, that's kind of different. So you can see that you get a lot more with the Hub Premium, but even the Hub Basic, there's a lot of things that I'll show during the demo that you can leverage, and that's just included with your ArcGIS Online organization. So there's no additional cost for that basic level. So for those of you who have seen Hub before, maybe you have even configured a site or a couple, but you decide that you want to attend this session, maybe you could get something new. I think that was my idea, including this here, especially because we just had a user conference not too long ago, was to highlight some of the newer features. So the first one is more the user experience, the interface of the application. You can see, especially if you can compare this to how it was before, there has been some improvements in terms of bringing the map to the center of the screen, making it bigger here. You still have all the buttons for filtering and discovering APIs and looking at information about who created this, when, more details about what this is for. So you have all the things that you had before, but just the user experience, I believe it has been improved with the new design of the site. And then there are a couple other things that you can see on the left side here of the slide that have been improved as well. I'm going to go through this quickly here because I want to make sure that I have some time for a demo too, but this little animation here is just showing how you can discover more information about specific data sets, and then how you can also explore the table and later the API. So It's something that if you're a developer, maybe you want to work the data at that level, you want to maybe set up some filters, and then you want to just grab a URL and put it somewhere in your application. And it's something that you can definitely do with the new interface too. The enhanced row visibility is a really nice one. I have actually talked to a number of users that have been considering this for their project. It's just this idea that maybe before you would have to create 2 hub sites, one for internal use, one for external use, just because some things you didn't want to make available to everyone. Now with the newer releases, you can configure the visibility for specific areas of your site. And that's driven by that concepts of groups in ArcGIS Online. So if someone is part of a group or a member of the organization, they will see this content. If they are not, it's like it doesn't exist for the user. And I'll show during the demo an example. And the way you do that is very simple. When you're adding that row area to your site, you have this option, visibility option here to match the site, or you can limit specific groups like I mentioned. And then some compliance improvements too. You can have some messages that it can be the default message, it can be some that you turn off tracking, or even if you want to customize that message to really include your language and other things that you think would be important to display to the user. You have those, and there's a lot of resource about accessibility and things related to that topic online about ArcGIS Hub. It's a very frequent question too. We don't have time to go too deep into this today, but just let me know if you have more questions about this topic. And then the templates that are only available to premium users before now has been added to the basic level too. So again, if you want to spin up a site and you're not sure how to start, this is a way for you to take advantage of what other users have done. Maybe they shared publicly, and you can now access that template and use that template as a starting point. So there's a lot more things. Again, we don't have time today, but you can see some of them here, just more in the types of widgets and things that you can add to your site. You have this people card that we can have. Maybe you have like a staff page. Or if you want to like a frequent asked question section, you have this accordion widget. So a lot more enhancement. There is a blog out there that talks about all of these things. So I just want to mention them so that people are aware, but you can definitely learn more with the resource online. With that said, I only have a couple minutes here, so let me quickly stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to share a different one. This one. So here is ArcGIS Hub. When you log in, and the way that I got here, I went to the app launcher and I just clicked Hub in ArcGIS Online. It took me to this page. I can either create new initiative, new sites here, or I can manage existing one. And I have that community area here for premium users or premium organizations that have premium hub, where they can manage and work with those community users as well. People they are following initiatives, signing up for events and things like that. So that's a separate ArcGIS Online organization, the back end, but you can manage that through this interface here. It's not really mixed with your organizational account. And then the site that I created for the presentation here today is, go to my recents. I just created my watershed district here. This is not a real site that you can find, but I create this site just to highlight some of the things that I mentioned before, right? How easy it is to create and configure something. So you have everything that you need to configure your site is on this side panel here. And you're gonna work a lot with this layout options. So if you wanna add an image, you just click and drag and drop that. Now you have an image here, you can put an URL or upload something. And if you wanna put, let's say, some text next to it, so very easy to configure. There's no reason to write custom code, but if you wanna take to that level, you have option to edit the code for some of the widgets. And you can maybe extend the design and improve the design a little bit. But basically, these are the widgets available. A lot of these are available with the basic option, but this people, initiative, sign up, these are more related to two-way engagement. They are only available to premium users. So Hub Basic looks the same, but you wouldn't see these widgets here. And then within a site, you can also have pages. So I added a couple additional pages here at the top. So I have this adopt a wetland and inspection apps. I can manage them by going to, for example, here, and it would take me there. But unfortunately, for the demo here today, I need to use a Cognito tab to kind of simulate someone that's not logged into the site. So just bear with me for a second. I'm gonna now playing a different role of someone outside the organization. I'm gonna share this page here where when I log in, maybe I don't see that app inspection app tab, or when I go to the adopt wetland page, I don't see anything here, just giving an option to sign up. And this is a very simple example that I put together just for the presentation today. But the idea is that, and I have to move the Zoom tab, when I log in and I am a user that is part of the system, I see additional content now. So that's what I was talking about with the new enhancements. This survey was here before. It's not available to anyone unless you sign in. And the same thing with the inspection app here. As I logged in, I can see this page now. So here I was hiding specific section of the page, or I can hide entire pages too. And let's say this is something for internal users in the organization. They can come here, scan this, and do some field inspection or something like that. If I, again, sign out, that page goes away. If I go to the wetland page, then I don't see the survey anymore. I think we're running out of time here, so I'm going to pause and just see if there are any questions about anything that we talked about. Okay, no. If there are no questions, I think I have a couple more slides with resources. Again, we have a few more minutes. I'll start the next session at 1:30, but if you can think of any questions before that, just let me know, we can discuss here. But if you don't have questions right now, but would like to learn more about ArcGIS Hub, a great way to do that is at the product site. So if you like more to read documentation, you really want to know step-by-step how to do something, the website is a great place. If you have a very specific question, maybe GeoNet, like you know for other products. But personally, what I like to use often is the YouTube channels, and specifically the Esri events channel. You can actually find a longer version of this presentation there too, because this is something that a very similar presentation was delivered at the user conference. I just had to kind of reduce the slides here for the time that we had today. But the YouTube channel, the Esri events is one. You can find videos from all the Esri events there, and it's an invaluable resource to learn more about what you can do, what's new, and how you use different products. And then there's also the Esri industries. If you're looking for something more specific to your industry, maybe you don't want to learn about ArcGIS Hub, Field Maps, or dashboards. You want to learn about how dashboards can be used in public works departments. The Esri events or Esri industries YouTube channel is a great one. And then there are a number of blogs and other locations that the training site, the Esri Academy, that place that you can go to learn more. We have a couple of minutes, so I'm going to ask again if there are any questions. If not, I think we can probably use some extra minutes for the field maps, and maybe Ryan can use for his section of the presentation too, so we can keep moving. But any questions before we move forward? No? Okay. So this is a little different for me to do 2 sessions in a row and changing topics. I'm just going to open up the next slide deck here. And the second topic that we're covering in this session with the 3 Esri presentations here is ArcGIS Field Maps. And this is a newer application. It's not really new anymore since it's been a while since the first release, but it's a work in progress, definitely, because it's an ambitious project to bring up all these capabilities from different apps under one product, one application. And as I go through the presentation, I'm going to explain kind of what the plan is, what has been done so far, what's coming up in the next few releases here. One nice thing is that when we start talking about this a year ago, The integration with Workforce and other applications was kind of a year and a half away. Talking about this now, it's something that will be probably added to the product by the end of the year or early next year. So it's getting pretty close to the original vision, original plan to come to full completion here. And you have this application that you can do a lot of interesting things in terms of assigning work orders, collecting data in the field, doing offline work and under one application. So that's, maybe I'm talking too much here on this first slide, but that's kind of the Field Maps presentation, what we're going to go through. So I want to talk a little bit about why Esri is doing this, spending the resource to kind of, we had all these apps, they work great, why bring them together under one application? I'm going to go through some benefits and capabilities of the app today, and also where it's going to be available, let's say early next year. And because I'm not really going to have time to do a comprehensive demo showing all the capabilities, I want to at least mention some similar to what we did with the examples in the previous session, ArcGIS Hub, just kind of show you some things so that you're aware, you can research more if some of those things catch your attention. And then we're going to do a quick demonstration here of the different applications that are included in the Field Maps app. And when I say a couple here is because you have a desktop application to create and manage your projects, and you have the mobile application for doing the data collection in the field. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the future slides. I usually like to start any presentation about apps with this slide, just because as the number of applications grow, it gets harder. It's getting harder and harder to kind of see how things fit together and what are the main components of ArcGIS today and how they work together. So the way that I like to think about it, I like this slide because it highlights the desktop side, highlights the main ones in the middle here would be your main locations for managing your content, managing your users, making sure that the right people has access to the right information. And then you have a number of apps represented by one single icon on the right side here. But it's representing a lot of different applications, right? From insights to field maps, to dashboards, to business analysts, community analysts. So there are a number of applications that kind of run on top of ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise. And then at the bottom, you have this developer line here, just with representing the idea that developers can tap into these applications and write code to customize and modify what you get kind of out of the box too. But today we're going to focus for this second session at one of the apps included in this ArcGIS apps icon here. So all the applications that you see on this slide are also part of that ArcGIS apps family, for lack of a better word. And this is something that started many years ago with Collector. So maybe 8 years ago, I'm kind of losing track of time, but it's been a while since Collector was released. It was successful, and with Collector, there was a need from working with users to develop other applications that would allow data to be captured or added in the field, but that would work slightly different. So Survey 123 is a good example. Quick Capture is a different example. But this is kind of the family of field applications that we have at Esri. And they support specifically specific areas of the workflow here. So as you can see, right, you have the area to plan your work. Maybe you need to navigate to locations, understand what's there, capture. Maybe you want to monitor what's being done, and then coordinate the work too. The idea behind Field Maps was to bring some of these apps together under one application, because as the number of applications started to grow, users use their creativity and they start pairing these apps. And the product teams, they were working with users, kind of collecting feedback and trying to make it easier for users to maybe from Workforce launch Collector, or maybe from Collector launch Survey 123, and just kind of make that experience more seamless so that it doesn't seem like you're constantly jumping from one app to another. There is also something to be said about kind of battery consumption and maybe storage, because if you're working offline, you have to store base maps and things like that, or you might want to do that. So the idea was to make the user experience better, but also from the technical side, kind of improve performance, improve storage, and everything that was a challenge when you work with different applications, right? So ArcGIS Field Maps was created several months ago. I want to say probably earlier this year. And the idea was to have one single application that could support all those steps that we saw in the previous slide. The idea with Field Maps is not to replace all the applications that are current under that family of field applications. You can see on the side of the slide here, some of those apps will remain as standalone applications. That's because they're very specific. So not every organization is really using indoors or mission responder. Those are for specific departments, specific type of organizations. So those are going to be separate. Survey 123 is an interesting one because it's going to remain as a separate application, and there might be a number of different reasons for that to happen. But the nice thing is that some of the things that users like about Survey 123, it's being added to Field Maps. So the idea of having smart forms, the idea of being able to create a form by just dragging or change the attributes associated with that feature by just drag and drop simple types of fields that you want to include. That's something that's not currently supported, but it's something that's going to be available in a future release soon here. The smart form piece and everything that I'm going to be talking about here after this slide, it's currently part of the project, but the idea of having a similar experience to Survey 123 where you can just drag and drop things, that's something that's coming out. So like I said before, it's a very ambitious project to bring all these applications under one. This slide is just kind of letting you know where the team is at today. They have incorporated the features from 3 applications. So Explorer, Collector, and Tracker. So you can, everything that you could do with those apps before, now you can do in a single application. The Workforce Navigator features, I know a number of users are waiting for that workforce piece at least. They would like to be able to assign work orders and do that inside Field Maps and not having to use workforce separate. That's going to be something that's going to be added later this year or next year. Unfortunately, I'm not part of in any of these teams here. I'm on the local government team, so I don't know exactly the date, but last time I heard it was later this year, early next year. And some of just check the time again, looks like I'm doing good. Some of the key capabilities, like I mentioned the previous slide, that have been added so far is, of course, you can open your web maps and view them. You can do markup. So even if you want to make those maps available to people that, let's say you have a volunteer or you have an intern, someone that maybe you just wanted them to go there, they're new to the organization, they haven't really learn too much about your data and what fields are important, what's there, and you just want to avoid any mistakes there, they can add markup. So maybe later another member of the organization can go there and do some work or collect some data in areas that are needed. But that idea of markup is that everything's stored in a separate layer, not really on making any changes to your authoritative data. Data collection, you can do that since everything that was part of Collector is now under this Field Map application. Asset tracking, that's related to the functionality in Tracker for ArcGIS, right? You have the ability to track locations and see where users are, and that will be extremely important when the workforce capabilities are brought into this Field Maps application, because if you're assigning something to someone, you usually want to know who is the closest person to this location, especially if it's something that needs to happen fairly quick. And the location tracking and asset inspection are kind of related to this last thing that I was mentioning. So like I mentioned before, there are 2 applications when you think about Field Maps, and that's something that it's common now because we like Survey 123, right? You have the designer and you have the mobile app with Workforce, you have the Workforce web application that you can create and manage your project, and you have so Collector was kind of the exception, that you didn't really have this location where you would go to configure your application. Everything was just through the web map. So you would create a web map, you would change the pop-up, you would change the labels, and then you just make that available, and then people could open that in Collector, but that you didn't have a web application to configure your project. Field Maps has this web application where you can do a number of things, and most of those are listed here. So you can You can create different templates for your features. You can configure your forms. So when the field workers are collecting data, they have a good experience filling out those forms. Anything related to offline work you can do here now. You don't have to be going to the web map settings and trying to find things there. You have a specific area here where you're going to be able to do anything related to the offline workflows. Things related to your map, if you want to make any changes to location tracking, or as I go through the demo, some of those things will be, I think, easier to understand as you see how the interface works. But you have, there will be only a few cases where you might want to leave the Field Maps application to make changes to your project. Everything should be here. There's no need to go to content or go to the project or the service details page to do any changes there. And then the sharing, of course, again, it's something that before maybe you had to either open the web map or you had to go back to contents, and there was a couple of steps there. Now you can just update the sharing directly on the app here. And the mobile application, very similar to Collector and what you could do with the apps before, the other applications, right? Explorer and Tracker. The map viewing and some of those things have been enhanced too. So it's not just the same thing you had before. The user experience has been improved, but you can do, like I said before, map viewing, markups. It supports high accuracy data collection, like you could do in Collector. The smart form is something new here because you couldn't really do smart forms in any of those applications before. It's something that was in Survey 1, 2, 3, but more and more the Survey 1, 2, 3 kind of features or capabilities are being added to Field Maps. And then the view, record, share, location, track. So you can do that in one application now. And just trying to summarize some of these things. I know it's a lot, especially if you haven't even opened the application on your kind of day-to-day activities. It's kind of hard to understand and follow all these things. If you were using those individual apps before, maybe it's a little easier to follow, but here are kind of the key benefits with having everything under one application. And I mentioned most of this before, but just kind of to summarize everything. I was actually talking to a user this morning that was like, I think I'm going to get some pushback from my field workers that they have to learn and have to be opening 3 different applications, not just one. And that's kind of the main thing here, right? It's one app to learn and one app that you're going to have to install and open your device. You only have to sign in once, especially when you change credentials, something happened, and then you're trying to do a demo, and they're like, oh, I have to sign into this one again, this one again, this one again. Now it's just one application. And maybe it's something that Esri, because you're always showing these applications, every time I have to sign into one application, I have to sign into a bunch of other ones. And that's certainly a nice feature to have, right? To just sign in once, not have to be typing things more than once. Eliminate the duplication of offline content. I talked about that before, right? If you're downloading base maps and things like that to your device, you don't have to download one for each application. It's just one application. And some other advantage like consistency, right? Before, even though the other applications were all from Esri and they had a look and feel, Workforce, Collector, and Explorer was slightly different. Now it's kind of one application. The user never really feels like they are leaving the application. Something that I would encourage you to learn more on documentation or talk to your account manager if you are interested in learning more is about the licensing, because when we start bringing out these capabilities from different applications, the licensing piece might be maybe the hardest part to understand. But basically, and the Esri team has been working to make that easier. So for example, I think Tracker, the tracking capabilities used to require users to have a tracker license, but now it's included with the field worker. So that field worker user type is the key user to have access to the capabilities of field maps here. But then some of the things might be only available if you have a certain user type and some premium license, especially, I don't know the plan for the next 2, 3, 4 years here. And the license piece is just not as simple as you need this and then you're good. It's just, with the time that we have here today, I want to make sure that I can show some of the features, mention some things. This one is one that I wanted to mention, if you have questions, we can definitely talk more about this, maybe on the questions here later, or just have a follow-up meeting sometime in the future here to talk to you more about the license, really trying to understand what your needs are and what you would be required. Most likely is that field worker user type, but yeah, let's talk if you have questions about that. So more capabilities. Now we're kind of diving into the weeds here, and I'm just listing a number of things. Just go through them, their scan, and you can. I'm not going to read everything on the slide, but in terms of map support, there are a number of things that have been added. Map tools. So if you want to do anything like measuring and bookmarking, any of those things is available. Directions, even though Navigator is not included here yet, you can get directions like you did with Collector before, or Workforce, right? Kind of launch Navigator separately, or maybe you want to use Google Maps or Apple Maps or another location kind of provider that can help you get to point A to point B. The compass feature is something that, depending on the last time you used Collector or Explorer, you might be familiar with that or not. But this idea that, especially if you're working on an open field or something where there isn't a road, at least showing you the direction that you should be moving towards. So that compass is that little button that you can click, and then you just have a straight line that will move, and you show you the direction that you should be following to get from point A to point B. Markups, I talked about this before, so I don't have to spend too much time here. You can create points, lines, polygons, you can move those around, you can add specs, so things that you would expect to be able to do with a markup. And you can share those too. So after you enter those things, that's stored in a layer in ArcGIS Online, and you can share the layer with other users. High accuracy data collection. This is kind of a very important topic here, but it's something that's kind of very, very specific, so it might not be of interest of everyone that's attended this session here today. I want to mention again, just to make sure that you're aware that you can do high accuracy data collection on field maps. You can even do this streaming option where maybe you're driving from point A to point B and you want at every 5 seconds collect a point, or maybe you're walking, you're delineating wetland or something. You don't have to be manually entering the points. You can just create, configure a certain frequency, and then as you move, the new points will be added. And then you can do averaging. You can set up requirements for accuracy. So only capture data if it's my accuracy is above a certain threshold, for example. And you can easily connect to Bluetooth device and external GPS by selecting location providers here. We're not going to have a lot of time to talk about this, but again, the documentation, great resource. The Esri events YouTube channel has a presentation on this. You can learn more about this topic if you're interested. When you come to inspections workflow, a lot of most things that you need should be here too. This idea of work with non-version or traditional versioning data, or offline branch versioning. If you're following up kind of new types of doing versioning ArcGIS, you might have heard this branch versioning. That's a fairly new concept comparing to the traditional versioning concept, but it's available. You can do one-to-many relationships. So if you have a related table with a feature, you can collect many records on that related table that's associated with a single feature. I had a user that I was working with that was a little stuck on that, and I think the problem there is just on ArcGIS Pro, when he was configuring things, was a one-to-one relationship. But if you have tried to work through related table and you have had any issues, it should certainly be possible. It's just a matter of talking to you and kind of understanding what's not configured right there. But some other things here, I'm not going to go through everything. Feature templates, if you have specific attributes and symbology that you want to pre-configure so that the user doesn't have to be entering those, you can do that on the web application side of things. So maybe I have I'm doing a damage assessment, and it's something that needs to be done quickly, and I don't want the user in the field to waste time entering something that I can put as a default value, for example, in those attributes. So you can do that, and this interface will look more familiar to if you haven't seen this before when I do a demo in a few minutes here. Smart forms, this is probably my favorite kind of enhancement from Collector here is this idea of being able to create these forms, and it's a huge improvement. Even if you're used to working with Survey 123 and the way you can do things there, it's kind of similar and it's very intuitive. And instead of trying to do something pro, create or especially when that capability is added here, when you're trying to add a new field, you're not going to have to go to pro, create something there, publish that feed. You can just, I want to add a new field, you just select one from the list, and then that will modify the schema of the data in the back end. Again, not available today, but you'll be available soon. But things like visibility, conditional visibility, if this is yes, then show these additional questions. This is something that you can do today. Excuse me. And you can also group features. I'll show that during the demo. When it comes to working with offline maps, there are a few options. You can do that in the web application, the Field Maps web app. You can do that in the web app or the web map itself, or you can provide the file to users to upload to their device and have it stored on the device as well. Here, just before we jump to the demo, just providing some resource in advance in case we run out of time of what we have here for demos in question. But kind of the same resources, right? The product page, the YouTube channels, and you might have a couple more here, like this migration guide and offline guide. Those are things that it's specific to Field Maps, and you have those to like enterprise, and you have this kind of white papers that can guide you through something that's more a migration plan or something like that. Definitely take a look at those if you're not still using Field Maps, but you're planning on maybe migrating some of the projects or just starting to use Field Maps now. With that said, let me stop sharing this screen, and I'm gonna go through to, I think it might be this one. Let me move my, yep. So just moving the Zoom taskbar here. Now, the way that I would access the Field Maps is just like, and this might be repetitive to most of you, but if someone doesn't know, it's kind of like the hub. It's just an application. Again, we're focusing on those apps, on that image that I showed before. There's a family of apps, and when this app launcher is where we'd find all the apps that runs on top of ArcGIS Online that you have the required license to access them. So if you click on Field Maps, it'll take you to the Field Maps web application. If you don't want certain web maps here to be available to the users that are using the mobile application, you can just select them and say hide in Field Maps Mobile. So especially as you start creating more and more web maps here, maybe some are not really applicable to the workflow with Field Maps, you can just hide those. But basically, if it's something you created here, the user has access to that. When they log in, they will see those, be able to search for these maps on the mobile application. This water quality inspection project is the one that I'm gonna show today during the demo. You also have the option to clone. So maybe you want to reuse the same map. Maybe you did some offline configuration. Maybe you added the form. There are a lot of things that you want to reuse from this current web map here for a different project. You can duplicate this. There are other ways to duplicate the form. You can use ArcGIS Online Assistant, or you can use, I think the Python API to do that too. But one thing to do that the duplication should be use this duplicate button here. So if I click on configure, it's going to open something. Let me refresh my page here because I had this open before. So now it took me to something similar to what I had on the slides, right? Where I have these tabs here on the left side, and I just move from top to bottom, depending on what I need to do. So when I go to content, so the overview, it's very simple, just basic information. You can change the title if you want here. Again, you don't have to go to the web map to do any changes like that. You can just change here. But the content is where I'm going to spend most of the time today, because I think that's where most people here would see the benefit, is how to work with this section of the web application. If I contract that, you can see I have layers, tables, and base maps. So if I have some related tables, they're going to be under tables. And if I have features, they're going to be under this layers tab. I have two layers here because I want to show to you how it looks in the beginning. So if I click on this inlet, I haven't configured my form yet. So it says, do you want to start dragging and dropping things manually? Or do I just want to delete these and I want to convert my pop-up as a starting point? And now I can make the change that I want. Let's say I really don't need to capture facility ID. I'm going to move that to, I'm just going to delete here. But I do want to group some of these things. So I can add a group. And then let's say the type here and this one, I want under this group. And this is nice just visually on the mobile application. Everything that you do here will be carried to the mobile application. It's just nice to see this blocks there instead of just individual attributes. But you can also do something like, I actually don't want this one to be expanded when the user opens the form, only expand if they need to go there. So you can change that here. And that will make more sense when I show the mobile application. Or for example, if I do want to do some conditional visibility. So if they say yes to a previous question, then show this entire group here. So I don't need to do condition visibility to like, then show this and show this and show this. I can just say, and show this entire group. So I had the inlet here because it was showing an example of how things looked in the beginning. For the water quality, I already went ahead and kind of configured things. So I have, you can see this one here is one group. Then I have another group here. This one is just date and time. This one is general information, weather conditions, and then chemistry, if you're doing some chemical analysis, and this advisory one. So that kind of cover, and then you have the templates too, right? So if I want, like I said before, let's say every time an advisory is no, I want maybe E. coli to be 0 or rain, whatever it is, the default values that you want to configure for that template, you can do that here too. So very, very simple, but you have this nice drag and drop experience and some additional things that you didn't have before. The offline options here, if you want to turn offline use of your web map, then you can create areas here too. So when I click here, I haven't configured any offline areas for this, but one way that I can create those offline areas is directly through the web application. I can click create area, and then I'm just gonna click here somewhere. And as I drag and drop, it would create those areas. I would save. I don't really have the time to go. Let me move my zoom bar again. I don't have the time to go.
Yeah, Gustavo, it is 1:58.
Okay, yeah, so maybe I apologize. I was planning on showing the web app here, but the mobile app, if there are any questions, we can use the remaining minutes here for that. If there are no questions, I'll share my cell phone screen here. I think it's coming through, and we can just quickly in a minute here show before Ryan has to start his session. So Field Maps, you can just search on the App Store. I'll open the application, and then you're gonna see that I can search for the maps. And then I'm just gonna show one layer here. If I go back to my maps, I can find that water quality one. Oops. Here, and then when I click, I'm just gonna click on one feature and show you the form, and then it will end and pass it to Ryan. But you can see I entered one feature here already. When I click there, I have some of the attributes here that I can edit. If I click on edit, then I see those groups that I saw before. Some of these things in the bottom here are not expanded by default. If I click there, then they're expanded. And I'm gonna end here just because we don't have more time, but hope that was a kind of good overview on the topic. Thank you.
Looks like there was one question.
Yeah, maybe we can follow up with Tyler on that one, because sounds like it's something that.
Take your time. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I'll pass it to you, Ryan. I can follow up with
Okay.
Tyler.
Perfect. Okay. Well, let me turn my camera on and try to share my screen. Okay. The whole screen. Okay, is that coming through all right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Gustavo. Yeah, and thanks for the two presentations. Those were great. And appreciate the time, everybody. Taking the time to talk a little bit about maps and dashboards. Again, hope what Gus went over was informative and good on Hub and Field Maps, but we're going to shift gears a little bit from the Esri perspective and talk about some enhancements to the Map Viewer and ArcGIS dashboards within ArcGIS Online specifically. So I'll keep my camera on now just to say hello and introduce myself, but I think I will probably turn it off just for the sake of bandwidth as I present, because I am going to try to get gutsy a little bit and try to actually do a live demo for most of the time. So I'll probably try to conserve the bandwidth as much as I possibly can. But anyways, so my name is Ryan Sellman. I am a team lead on our local government team that supports the upper Midwest. So like Gustavo, I work under the Minneapolis regional office, but I happen to be located in our Columbus, Ohio regional satellite office. So in Ohio, but definitely support, and I've probably met some of you folks over the handful of years that I've been with Esri, which has been about 6 or 7 now. But I support really a handful of customers across the entire local government space in the upper Midwest. Come from a solution engineering background though, so kind of lean on the technical side, just like Gustavo. And then before joining Esri, I spent a handful of years doing local government work at a county in Northeast Ohio, Summit County, Ohio. So a little bit about me. Again, it's a pleasure to talk to everybody. And yeah, I think we'll just dive right in. Today, what I wanted to tackle are just kind of, it feels like maybe two different sessions, but I'm going to blend them together and just from the perspective of building better mapping applications and maps with the new Map Viewer inside of ArcGIS Online, and then our new dashboard capability or newer dashboard capability that has been in ArcGIS Online for a number of years, but has flipped over to more of a browser-based experience. So we'll talk about those and kind of how they're glued together as we continue on in the presentation. So I'm gonna turn off my video just in case it again gets a little funny with the browser or with the bandwidth, but we'll just keep going through. So on the agenda, not a robust agenda here, but what we're going to do is, like I mentioned, talk about the new Map Viewer, sort of its place in the ecosystem of ArcGIS Online, where we've been with our Map Viewer, why we're making the changes to the new Map Viewer, what you can expect is in terms of user experience. The interface is different, right? Sort of a path forward for kind of migrating into the new Map Viewer, sort of cover all of that stuff. And then secondly, we'll talk about kind of shift gears and talk really about pushing those maps that are created and authored in the Map Viewer and pushing them and building really nice looking dashboards with the ArcGIS dashboard capability that is in ArcGIS Online. So we'll kind of tackle those two, and again, hopefully do a handful of demos and hopefully maybe share some tricks and some things along the way. But first, let's just a couple of slides around the new map viewer, which I'm calling the new map viewer. But really, if you've been using ArcGIS Online for the last 2 years or so, pretty heavily, we've gone through this process of calling it the map viewer beta and then moving it out of beta and actually making it the go-to map viewer inside of ArcGIS Online, with, of course, keeping the older classic version available, and in some cases, the default for organizations if they so choose. So we'll talk about Map Viewer first. So again, like I mentioned, formerly known as the Map Viewer Beta, this has been released in general availability for a number of months now, right? So with the April update of ArcGIS Online, this has been pulled out of beta and is in general availability, fully supported, all of those good things inside of ArcGIS Online. One thing that I did want to call out is that organizations and members can set the map viewer as the primary viewer. I believe right now, actually, with the June update of ArcGIS Online of this year again, the newer version of the map viewer became the primary map viewer in ArcGIS Online. I feel like I'm saying viewer a lot, but so the new one is the primary map viewer, but you can of course by individual or by named user go in and change the primary map viewer for a named user. Actually, that can be done on their own settings, and I can show what that looks like in the software itself. But you can also, as an organizational administrator, you can actually make that change and call out the default for your entire organization in the organizational settings. But so just a little bit on where we're at with the map viewer and its general availability and how you can get access to it, I guess. I really just before I think just what's best about this is just talking through it by showing the technology. So I'm going to go into that here in a second. But for those that have been using the map viewer or haven't, maybe for a number of reasons, I just wanted to talk about a couple of updates, some of the key updates that have been being pushed out over the last handful of releases of ArcGIS Online. So back in April, obviously it came out of beta into general availability. And with that update, we supported the adding of map image layers to the map. So not just feature layers anymore, you can add map image layers into the map viewer. You can also create apps from the map viewer or with maps authored inside of the map viewer using instant apps, dashboards, and story maps. And the key thing here with that is really underneath the hood, the map viewer, and I don't want to go too technical, but the map viewer, the new one, is based on the most recent version of our JavaScript API, which is the 4.x version, which comes with a whole host of new capabilities. And it really is our modern API that we build all of our web applications off of. And so because it is on the 4.x version of the JavaScript API, those apps that are also built off of the 4.x version of the JavaScript API can be supported, right? So instant apps are the newest iteration of the dashboard capability is, as well as story maps too. So that's why you're seeing those three being supported initially in April. Also in the map viewer, which is different than what you can see in the classic version of the map viewer, you can build charts, including bar charts, histograms, and scatter plots. So that's pretty cool. So you can do some interactive analysis directly in the map viewer that you otherwise wouldn't, you were not able to do with the older version of the map viewer. So that's nice. There is a new sketch tool to draw and stamp features on the map that are actually not inside of a feature layer. Think of these as like map notes almost. So you can kind of mark up, maybe label things just in an ad hoc fashion, and you're not actually referencing data coming from a feature layer inside of your ArcGIS organization. So that's been added in April. There's an improved UI experience within the map viewer for switching between layers and configuration. I will show what this means because it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense over text, but the idea of being able to quickly select a layer in the layer list widget and open up the configuration for that layer really quickly on the right-hand side of the screen that whole process has been reconfigured, and it's just much easier and a nice experience for users. There's a we can added enhancements again for the interface where you can kind of hide some elements, so there's more screen space. And then, of course, everything that's already always been there, right? Group layers, label classes, multi-element pop-ups, smart mapping styles. Clustering is really, really good inside of the new map viewer. So that's been there in the new map viewer and wasn't new in April, just been around. And then custom symbols from ArcGIS Pro are also, that's been a part of the new map viewer for a while. Couple of other key updates in June and September of this year. Again, highlighting what's been pushed this year is what I'm really focusing on here. So folks have a good understanding of, if you've been hesitant to move it and use it as your go-to map viewer, maybe some of these things that you've been waiting on are there. So again, full support of map image layers. So I mentioned that on the previous slide, but there were some new configuration options that have been added in the June release, particularly to support fully map image layers. Now in the map viewer, if you author a floor aware map in ArcGIS Pro, we will pick up on that floor aware map, and automatically the map viewer just detects that is a floor aware map that's been shared up, and a little toggle button will show up on the inside of the map viewer to basically allow you to kind of toggle between the floors that are available in the data within that floor aware map, which is pretty cool. Refresh interval can now be configured on layers within a map. This has been around in the Map Viewer Classic. Now it is available inside of the new Map Viewer, which is nice. Say you've got real-time data coming in or data that's being refreshed on a regular basis, and you want your apps that are feeding off of that one map to reflect new data. You can configure those layers to be, basically requery that data. So we're getting the most up-to-date information from the server or from the database or the feature layer to feed your application or your map. It's a super nice capability. Layer effects have been added. That was in, I think, September, but they are there. Layer effects allow really just some dramatic visual effects to your layers without any coding at all. And I'll show what this looks like in a little bit more detail here in a bit. Line charts are out there, so additional capabilities for charts, and then just flat out significant improvements for feature layers with many polygons and or polygons with complex geometry. So if you've got parcels with a ton of vertices or something of the like, this, the map viewer, because it's based on our JavaScript API 4.x version, it just handles those features with, it's just the improvements for that performance is just much better now. So let me just bounce over and get out of slides real quick and just show the new map viewer, if that's okay with everybody. So flipping over again, hopefully my browser is showing up in ArcGIS Online right now. And what I want to do is actually, I'll just go in. Well, first, what I want to do as an administrator inside of the organization, I can go in and say settings and think map, and you can basically define whether or not the new map viewer is going to be the primary map viewer for everybody in your organization. So in this case, we are using the new one in this internal organization that we have. So that's how you would change that. The other way to do it by user base, if you go into your settings for your named user, you should be able to change it there. So choose the primary viewer, and that's going to override, your unique settings are going to override the organizational settings if you so choose on your own named user. So let me open it up, and like some of the other ways that Gustavo was showing how you can access content and capabilities inside of ArcGIS Online, like Hub, like Field Maps, Map Viewer is made available in that app switcher as well. So I can open up the Map Viewer that way. And for those that haven't seen this yet, right, this is a newer experience, but again, this is that core authoring experience for building out, maps and ultimately feeding those maps into application builders like Dashboard, like, Instant App Story Maps, etc. On the left-hand side, I can basically control the content that's going to be in this. So I'm going to go in and add a layer. And I think in my content, I wanted to add tax parcel sales I was going to work with. So, and maybe think it was this one that I wanted to work with. This will show up in Northeast Ohio. I know I'm talking to Minnesota users. I apologize, but these are the folks that I used to work with, so I've got their data to work with. This is Northeast Ohio again, so I've added that layer in. So layers are easy to add in. Another kind of an interesting capability is being able to add in other layer types. So you'll notice that was a quick hook into content inside of my ArcGIS Online organization. But if I had other types of layers that I wanted to add, namely a CSV endpoint, you could add that in, a web service coming from another ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise experience. The sketch layer that I mentioned before, I could add a sketch layer on to start doing some of those sketching, so I can mark up the map a little bit by placing some pins on the map or drawing a circle, right, to just kind of mark the map up. That would be how you'd add that in. I'll close that out. But again, adding layers is super easy just by clicking that plus button. I can switch the base map, of course. I could add charts, which is what I'm going to do here in a second. Some of the basic things, your legend, everything is there, right? Your basic mapping capabilities, printing, etc. Now, one thing that I wanted to talk about is that ease of which by you can switch between layers and configuration. So now, right now in the map layer, I've got two different layers in there. I can quickly just grab both of those, and the configuration on the right-hand side for those is there. But that's kind of cumbersome going back and forth between sketch layer to, and the configuration for each of those layers. Now, with a more recent update, I can just grab that drop down and actually change the configuration for that particular layer that's been selected all right here on the right-hand side. So don't have to go back and forth on the screen. A little thing, but it's nice when you're doing heavy customization of a map. So just to show some other capabilities of the map viewer, I want to make sure I'm okay on time. It's 1/4 after. I can, of course, change the symbology by clicking on styles. This is very much what you're used to seeing in the previous version of the map viewer. I can select a field. Maybe I want to symbolize all of these sales. Again, these are land record sales, so parcel sales. Maybe I want to visualize that information by sale amount. I can click add, and it's going to pick up that that's actually an integer field. And so now I can quickly draw probably by counts and amount size. So the bigger the point, the larger the sale value actually was. But there's some other options here as well, of course. I could set an expression for how I want to symbolize this information. Maybe I wanted to add some more math to my sales. Maybe I wanted to do a sales ratio computation against sales amount versus assessed value. I could configure that directly inside of the map viewer with an expression built on Arcade. I'm not going to do that right now, but that's possible as well, and then symbolize against that particular value. Let's say that's okay right now. My symbology is all right. I could set up filters. Filtering is really easy to do. I could add an expression, and maybe I only want to see those sales that satisfy a particular query. So maybe I want to see all of those that are of residential structure type is, and these values mean nothing to us, but I think they mean like bungalow or Cape Cod or colonial. Summit County probably knows what these actually mean, but I could quickly go in and save those out, and now I'm only seeing, again, those that satisfy that query. You'll notice the performance is really, really good. So I can quickly start to see without actually applying the filter and hitting save and then seeing the results. I can quickly do that within the filter configuration without actually going through the save process and then reopening the configuration, which is a subtle thing, I know, but it's nice. So I'm going to wipe out any expression. We'll just work with the full data set. I mentioned layer effects. This is a brand new capability, and this is just really cool for guys like me that aren't great with cartography. I lean heavily on the software, certainly smart mapping, which has been around in the platform for a while, but some of these other effects now I can apply to my map, just really to make them the pop and add some different capabilities or in terms of the symbology. So I can maybe add a blur effect. Probably hard to see over a Zoom call, but that basically defocuses the edge of the map features. Maybe I want to put this bloom effect on. I don't know why you would want to do that. That's probably not a good example, but you get the idea. This drop shadow is pretty cool. Kind of puts the shadow behind each of these features, which is pretty nice as well. So those layer effects are, again, under the configuration for that particular layer. They're right there. The last thing that I want to show, I'm not going to get into any really, labels are there. You can configure pop-ups like you have been before. Wanted to quickly show the charting capabilities. So let's just build a chart against the text parcel sales information. Again, for the configuration for that layer, if I click on configure charts, I could add a new chart. And let's say I wanted to add let's do a line chart to show maybe average sales prices over time. So I could select the data and I could say, I'm going to test my charting capabilities here. I think on the x-axis, I would want to do transaction date. And we'll add a mean sale amount and then click done. So I think that does the mean for all of the sales that were within that particular time frame in this time series chart. So I quickly was able to make a quick, nice looking chart. And what's nice about this is it's actually interactive as well. So if I select parts of these, if I zoom out, you'll notice all of those sales on the map have been selected. We can back this down a little bit. So again, just a lot of robust capabilities inside of the map viewer that's new. Just wanted to quickly take a quick tour of it, show some of the newer capabilities. Again, not a whole lot of time here on this session to really dive into it too much more, but there's a lot here. And there's a lot of capability that you're used to probably working with inside of the classic map viewer that, again, is already being ported over if it is imported over already. Editing is there. The key thing for me, I do a lot of analysis in my work in the map viewer. That isn't there yet, but it is, of course, on the roadmap. So being able to call up the analytical tools inside of the map viewer and do more robust spatial analysis with ArcGIS Online utility services is not there yet, but it is coming. So very much a whirlwind. I understand that of the map viewer, but let's bounce back over and maybe shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about dashboards. And I don't see any new, oh, no, I didn't make that mistake. There we go. I don't think I saw any new questions, so I'll keep kind of moving through just for the sake of time. All right, so ArcGIS dashboards, really popular capability. Again, it's an app builder. Well, I've got some product placement here. So basically, it's our out-of-the-box web application focused around authoring and viewing dashboards, right? So it provides key insights to data on a single screen, comes with ArcGIS Online, comes with ArcGIS Enterprise. Updated with ArcGIS Online about 4 or 5 times per year. So new updates are coming to that automatically, just like every other app builder or other capability in ArcGIS Online. You subscribe, you get those updates. Life is good. With ArcGIS Enterprise, it comes with the with the portal for ArcGIS capability inside of ArcGIS Enterprise. And at 10.6.1, I know this is that's a pretty dated, well, not so dated actually. We're at 10.9 right now, or 10.9.1, I think. But at 10.6.1, it's just in the box, right? So it just comes with the portal for ArcGIS capability. So there's no need to install anything and make it available inside of the portal application. So if you're installing portal at 10.6.1 or greater, you're just going to get the capability inside of portal for ArcGIS. Built-in functionality like mapping and legends are supported inside of the dashboard. Serial charts, pie charts, there's indicators that you can do statistics against, gauges to show progress against a particular goal, a list widget, details. You can embed content directly inside of a dashboard, link other websites or what have you, maybe other applications inside of a dashboard. That's supported now. Rich text is there. And then there's various tools to make dashboards actually interactive, right? So you can select a piece of a pie chart and have the map light up and show only those features that represent that selection inside of that pie chart, for example. So you can wire up the dashboards really to be interactive and do that cross filtering that we all kind of expect the dashboard to handle these days. But really what I want to get into and how this kind of fits into this conversation about newer mapping and newer dashboarding, like the Map Viewer Classic, and how it's kind of progressed into the new Map Viewer with the 4.x version of the JavaScript API. Our dashboard capability has gone through that kind of revamp as well. So there is a new version of ArcGIS dashboards. You might not have even noticed it because it looks really similar, but you'll probably notice it in that app switcher that Gustavo and I have been showing to access applications. There's actually 2 buttons in there now. There's Classic ArcGIS Dashboard, which again is on that older version of the API, and then the new ArcGIS dashboards, which really we're calling ArcGIS dashboards now because it's completely out of beta, right? So it's the same authoring interface. Capabilities are really there as the same as the current version with many enhancements. And underlying with that is that 4.x version of the JavaScript API. So existing dashboards are going to work. We're not taking those away. They shouldn't have any issue when you open them up in the new version. There might be subtle differences in the font size, but other than that, everything works really, really well. And if you want to upgrade, I think I've got a slide that talks about the actual upgrade, so I won't get ahead of myself. But anyways, that's where we're at. We're moving into this next iteration of the dashboard for those functionality requirements and benefits that come with the newer version of the API. Some of those enhancements, improved performance, like we've mentioned with that JavaScript API. Now there is support for arcade within dashboards. So you can do advanced formatting and data expressions directly in the dashboard. So things like list widgets now work against that arcade. I think there's a couple of other widgets that you can configure arcade expressions against and do some really interesting things with your data. Additional support for other data sources like feature collections and CSV web layers are there, and some other key capabilities as well. So the next thing, I'm gonna check my time. I've got 5 minutes and this is actually working out pretty good. So just working with the classic dashboards, right? Again, I mentioned they're not going anywhere. They're still there, and I can pop open ArcGIS Online really, really quickly just to show you what it looks like. But those URLs will still work to existing dashboards. What I wanted to call out here, if you want to take advantage of the next iteration of dashboard, right, you can upgrade existing dashboards to the new version by opening the older version, right, in classic dashboards, and then just simply saving, right? This will, though, change the URL, but the item ID is going to remain the same. So again, every single item inside of ArcGIS Online has that long item ID. That's going to remain the same, but the URL to that actual dashboard is going to be just a touch different. So if you've got references to that classic dashboard in a hub site or in a story map, or you're embedding it in your existing website, you might want to be cognizant of that, because the URL is going to change. So just be ready to make that swap wherever that's being referenced across the internet. You can, though, create a copy of an existing dashboard using the save as functionality to basically compare those differences between the dashboard versions. Like I mentioned, the differences should be very, very minimal, but this is a best practice just to make sure that everything is looking okay. And there's no surprises when you do a, just a in-place save and it's like, well, wait a second, what happened? Again, the font might be it, the font sizes that might be a subtle change that you'll notice, but other than that, all the functionality is there. The key thing about this is this will create that new URL, but also a new item ID inside of your ArcGIS Online organization. You can open and edit existing dashboards through the Dashboard Classic button in App Launcher, right? Just like you have always been able to. So got a quick demo just to walk through that very quickly. Not going to take much time because I know we're up against it, but just want to show you back in ArcGIS Online. You'll notice in my app launcher, there is Dashboards Classic and Dashboards. If I go in, you'll notice that the dashboard URL is just a touch different. This is ops dashboard, so apps/ops dashboard. And then if I go into the new version, we're just calling it dashboard. And that really designates the newest iteration of the dashboard capability built on that newest iteration of the JavaScript API. So I hope this is making some sense. I just wanted to call it out because it's to me, it's super important to take advantage of the most recent capabilities of the ArcGIS Online platform. And this is that way to do it with your dashboards that you've been authoring, in previous versions with the classic version. I think that's all I had. I know that was a whirlwind, super fast, but I got maybe 2 minutes, 1 minute left. I don't have any other slides. I think my last slide was this. So any questions at all from the group, really about what I covered and maybe anything that Gustavo covered in his previous sessions? Oops. Nothing at all?
Well, if there are no questions, I definitely want to thank both of you for presenting today.
Sure.
It was a pleasure having you guys give your talks. Very great information about ArcGIS Online. I know that I'm excited about the online platform and it moving forward. So, but yeah, if there's no other questions, if either of you have a quick final word you want to give in, otherwise.
Yeah, no, just thanks, Ethan, for helping us here today. And I don't think I have any else to add.
Yeah, me neither. I don't know how if there is questions, maybe we can provide our emails. I don't know if, or maybe that's just out there on the site, Ethan. I'm not sure. I guess I could.
I guess I don't know for sure.
Well, how's
what
that? I've just dropped mine in.
There you go. So if anyone has any further
Yeah,
questions,
just feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help.
there is one question.
Cool.
Do you know what version the new dashboards are available in Portal for ArcGIS?
Okay, good question. So the question is, when did we push, what version of Portal for ArcGIS did we push the 4.x version of the dashboard? I would have to check on that. I want to say around the 10.8 release, but I would need to confirm. Certainly if you're installing like a 10.9 or 10.9.1 instance of Portal, they should be there, but I'm drawing a blank on the exact version where we ship the more recent version of dashboard with Portal. I think it's around 10.8. I don't know, Gustavo, if you know that off the top of your head.
Yeah, I would have to check too. There's so many apps, and then you have online enterprise. It's kind of hard to keep track of everything. But yeah, it sounds about right, but don't know for sure.
About that time frame, yeah. But yeah, feel free to reach out. Email would be good, and I can confirm. I don't know who asked that, but I'd be happy to follow up.
Unfortunately, the only name given was MNGIS Conference 8. So
shoot, that's okay. Well,
but you did give your. Oh wait, no, you put the email to me.
oh shoot, I'm sorry, everyone.
Oh, I did.
There we go. How's that?
Yeah. Okay.
There's Gustavo. Here's one.
Yeah, I know it's a little bit over, but if you have time for one more question.
I'm good, yeah.
The same user followed up. If we are considering ArcGIS Enterprise for Portal upgrade from 10.7.1, do you have a reference on what to consider?
I mean, in terms of any gotchas, I guess, like any or what to expect in the actual upgrade process. There's a lot of variables to that. I mean, I think in general I haven't heard any in terms of 10.8. Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say there is a page on the documentation that's kind of specific for users migrating from a version to another. I don't know if I would be able to provide any information that's not included there. So I think I'll direct you to that page. And if you send an email to me or Ryan, we can definitely get you that page, because upgrades are always a little more tricky than a new install. So that page is very detailed, and there's definitely an order to do the upgrade. So when you're installing things, you can pretty much install everything and then you configure later. But the upgrades, you have to make sure that you do, I don't know, server first and then Portal, and then, so that page will explain step by step.
Yeah, in terms of maybe the question is around like capability that comes with the Portal version, I think 10.9 would be a good one to get to. 10.9 like .0, like that version, I think will give you that. I'm pretty confident that the next iteration of, again, the dashboard will be there. Field Maps is baked into, I think, a 10.9 enterprise portal. So the Field Maps web application that Gustavo showed, where you can author field maps and kind of make those smart forms, I believe that's there. I would recommend at least a 10.9 install if you're comfortable with going to that recent.
Yeah, and I think some things are available at 10.8.1, but it's something that you have to manually add. And then with the 10.9, it's just included. So install, it's just there.
Yep.
All right. Well, doesn't look like there's any more questions. So, yep. Once again, thank you too for presenting. Thank the audience. I thank you, the audience, for attending.
Absolutely.
And I hope everyone can enjoy something a little more through this conference. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.